everyone. Welcome to Radioactive Real Estate. My name is Jason Eckman. I'm with Jeck Real Estate Services. Next to me is the best sound engineer in the business, Jacob Stoll with Stoley Productions, also known as Stoley the Producer. Our goal of the show is to bring you topics that are centered in and around real estate investing, and the housing market overall. We bring in guest speakers each show who are working in their field to give you relevant information that you can use right away in your life and in your business. And this week, our topic is insurance, which everybody needs.
Everybody's favorite.
Everybody's favorite. I know it doesn't sound exciting, but you have to have it. Trust me, if you don't insure. And we're going to break it down because insurance is a huge topic. But to give us all the information we need to have success, we have our special guest this week, who is Heidi. I want to say this, Heidi Gauthier-Mondesir. Did I get that right?
Correct.
All right. And she's with Lofton Affiance. I struggle with that. Insurance. Oh my gosh. You're just going to have to say it or I'm going to blow it all out of the water. But Heidi has been in the insurance industry for over a decade. She's originally got insurance after recognizing all the holes in the industry and how many insureds weren't truly protected because they didn't understand their coverage. So as a wife and a mom of 3 kids, she wants to help educate and protect her insureds like they are family so they can rest easy knowing that things they hold most dear are truly covered with all their insurance needs. Ladies and gentlemen, Heidi. Heidi, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. So like I said, insurance is a huge industry, guys. And so we're going to break this down today because we could literally have a 2-hour conversation by the time we get through it all. So I'm just going to lob you some softball questions here, easy, but we're going to focus a little bit more on just the normal housing side as a person and like if I'm buying an investment property, so we got the niche down. Because like I said, you can get into coverages and roofs and fences and all this sorts of stuff that you
go
do
down
with,
that rabbit hole.
Yeah, on a day-to-day basis, and we don't want to go that long solely, right? Don't want to go that, no, at all.
We'll be there all week.
Not today, maybe.
Not today, maybe later. We can do multiple shows with Heidi. That's the great thing. So, all right, so Heidi, if I'm coming to you as a new person, need insurance, I bought a house or I'm buying my first rental property, what is the information that you need me to know, like first thing when you walk in the door, like, hey, this is what we need to do to get you started?
Well, as often people end up hearing, I want to get an apples to apples quote. They might have had previous insurance on something, so they think that they know what it is. So they're like, oh, I want to have coverages that match up with what I had before. Well, you need to remember all apples are not the same. All are not created equal. So that comes down to carriers as well. So we're wanting to make sure that they're actually getting placed with an actual carrier that will do 100% replacement costs to really be able to protect their investment.
Okay, so not all carriers do that. I take it then from that answer, right?
Very true. There's a lot of different ratings that they have for the carriers, and also as like somebody who's going and purchasing a property, they don't realize that often, they could go into an insurance agency and they're just looking at you as basically a policy that you're looking at. And so they're like, oh, we're just going to throw it in there, find out which is going to be the cheapest rate. Because of course we all are trying to save our money as well. But at the end of the day, do you not want to make sure that your property is actually covered when you actually need your insurance? It's the necessary evil that you have to have.
Sure. Okay, so what is it? Let's say I'm, we'll use a great example because we're here in Florida. Last year, a hurricane came through. I have an investment property. Let's say I had damage to the roof, or something like that. How is that going to differ from like my homeowner's policy as opposed to like a rental type policy? And are there differences between the two? Obviously, I would assume there's difference in the rates, but is it different just in how it's all facilitated or how does that kind of work? Because I'll be honest, I don't really know a lot about insurance. Oh. I was the guy who came in, they just gave me a policy and I walked away.
You were the nod and smiler. As I call them, the person who, when you go over your coverages and you say, do you understand all that? And they nod and smile with like that look of, yep, I know, because they don't want to end up saying they don't understand what they actually have for coverage.
Okay.
And I was one of those. Yeah. I was 100%. Before I went into the industry, I would totally did that. And I looked like, oh yeah, I got that. Mm-hmm. And had no idea. It was like, oh, I got these numbers here. And they said, I'm covered. And so, again, that's something that many people are guilty of that, and they don't want to end up asking the questions, and the agent isn't actually going over that information so they truly understand what their coverages are.
So what questions should I be asking?
Well, when you end up first going in where you were talking about like the roof and everything, so obviously you can have a rental property versus a home. So there's different carriers that when you're going on there, some carriers will have it where like a rental property, just even on the premium alone, is going to be often less than a standard homeowner's. The reason for that being is because of the fact that you don't actually have all of your personal property items that are in there. So on you want to, when you're first going in, Some will have it where they'll just write the rental property with like no personal items in there. You want to definitely have property listed in there to some capacity because there might be washers, dryers,
water heater,
appliances, things like that.
Okay.
If you put it in and have it where, and a majority of the ones here in Florida I've learned, write it without that, and then something happens and they're like, well, I thought I was covered, and they're not covered. So usually I always say make sure that you at least have $5,000 on that, because you might not have like obviously the top of the line,
No, but if you got to
appliances,
replace
but
everything in there.
if you got something that happened, whether it be, a fire, pipe burst in the house, something like that, then at least you know that you've got coverage for those items.
Yeah, a mid-range appliance package is easily a couple grand.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you're wanting to have it depending on, if it's newer appliances, say you have some investors that have it where they bought new builds, and so then there's new appliances, then you're going to want to obviously adjust according to what it is that you have there, and depending on if there's other materials or specifics that you have also put into the property.
Now, would that include, let's say I bought a property and it has a fence. Would that include the fence, or is that something that's going to be added on to that? Because fences are...
That's an additional, that's a different coverage that's on
Okay.
there. So
Okay.
you do have it where you have like non-property kind of items that are on there, and that goes as a percentage off of your dwelling.
Okay.
And so that ends up going for like your fence. So if that, say we had a hurricane come through, it's going to be covered there. But you want to also know like a screened enclosure, like over a pool or even just over a patio that's on there, that will not necessarily have it where there's coverage depending on the carrier. So with that, like a screened enclosure has it where it's detached from the house. It's just adhered onto it.
Right.
So with that, you're going to always, I tell people, make sure you have at least $10,000 in screened enclosure coverage. It's an additional endorsement that you're doing on there. It ends up being, depending on how big your screened enclosure, like it could be just $25 extra over the 12-month policy.
Right.
Which it's worthwhile to do that. And, people want to have it where it's cheaper on some aspects, but then they're like, oh, I don't need that. But then when it happens and you're being asked to pay out 10 grand, then you start to be like, well, I should have paid that $25.
Well, that's my favorite part of the house. Stola, you've been to my house. I have that whole screen-in patio, and that's my favorite part of the house 9 months out of the year, except for, July, August, and September down here when it's just so blazing hot you can't even go outside.
Or you need an umbrella all the time?
Well, no, I have a hard roof on it. Yeah, so I can sit out there when it rains. So it's
Then
great.
that's great.
I got a TV out there. I might have a little cooler for some adult beverages out there. I might have all sorts of furniture out there. And like I said, 9 months out of the year, it's great. But yeah, you're right. It's not attached technically as part of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's adhered to it.
From the roof, when people are like, oh, well, yeah, it's connected on the house. No, it doesn't have like the normal roof. If it ended up going, it can completely come off in a hurricane.
And I know, the last hurricane, the reason I asked for the fence is because we had, we didn't have a fence at the time. We got one after, but my neighbor, had panels down. Guy down the street had a whole side wall of his fence come down, probably 8, 10, 12 panels. And, I know there was a renter down the street that had, so it's like, how is that always, I mean, people just don't know, and fences they don't think of as part of the house, but you have to go replace a fence, like you said, or a screen enclosure. It's a lot of money.
You could have the neighbor's tree knock down your fence from the hurricane, and things that I've seen, I had somebody, their fence got knocked down. They had like a little walkway path that was like paved. It ended up having it where that cracked and did all the damage because of the roots that were from the other tree. That also was in that additional coverage as well. So those are things to have on there. Even with like the roof and everything, when you were talking about replacements on like a homeowners versus renters as well, or rental property as well, those are going to be similar on coverages depending on what the carriers. Some have it where some carriers that aren't A-rated, they'll have it where it's like a depreciated amount. So you could have a roof that's 15 years old and then it has damage, and people are like, well, the hurricane came through and ripped off everything. Depending on what your coverage was on that, you could have it where you are still responsible for that roof except for some of the tiles or shingles that came off. One of the things you definitely want to do is have it where it's a full replacement with your roof on there, especially here in Florida, because Florida's a whole different animal on insurance than other states. And so as we talked before, like sometimes people have it where they think that they get information because they go to different carriers to get quotes and different agents, and they feel like they get just enough information that they're dangerous. And if the person hasn't done it for as many years, they can end up feeding into, okay, they got all the right answers, they're answering, and the person is thinking they're doing right by themselves to save money because they assume that as the agent, oh, they're just trying to get my money. Well, and it is true. There are a lot of agencies that are that way. But at the end of the day, it's like you can be doing a major disservice to yourself. So then when you actually have that, claim that happens, then they're like, well, I had said this and they're expecting to have all this service. But then it's like, well, you said all of these things. And if you're not seasoned, like I feel like I like listening to stories all day. And so it's like I am the excuse factory of clients.
Well, let me, okay, so we're going to take a little bit of a left turn here. So with Stoli, with what we do, we'll do rehabs and we'll do some things like that. Obviously, we're not living in the house. We're just going to come in, carpet, paint, maybe some appliances, all that kind of stuff. What kind of insurance am I looking at there? Because it's going to be short term. I'm not going to own it for more than 3, 4, hopefully no more than 4 months, maybe 5 months if it's a little higher end. So short term and just cranking it out. What am I looking at on that side when I'm doing like a rehab insurance?
Okay, so you're doing that. You're going to still do it as like a renter dwelling policy on there, which is a DP3. But then what you're looking at for that aspect is you're having a builder's risk put on it. Okay. So essentially it's having it where it goes on for, say, 90 days. Say you're just doing a quick little rehab on it, and you just put that on. If you need to extend it, it can go a little further. It just gives you a little extra protection during that time because obviously when you're doing rehab, you can have more trip and fall kind of things or little mistakes that you don't know. But it just protects you or anybody coming in there that you might contract just to help you with that rehab. So that would be what I'd recommend on that.
All right. So here's a right turn for you because we're gonna go all over. Like I said, we could be here for 2 hours with insurance. Condos, because one of the things I want to do is take some of these rehabs, right? I'm fixing and flipping them. And my wife wants a condo on the beach that I could Airbnb. So roll that money up and buy a condo. What am I looking at when I get into a condo insurance-wise? Because obviously, let's say, it could be a 5, 10-story building. Their roof is different. I'm not totally responsible for the roof or some of that.
Multiple tenants.
Yep.
I'm sure, if I'm on the coast, it's going to be hurricane rated and have all those kind of things already. But what am I looking at insurance-wise there as opposed to a single-family home where I'm the only person in there?
So on like a condo, what that ends up being, it's called an HO6 on there. And so what that ends up being is essentially you are just insuring the structure inside your like 4 walls. Okay. So it's the drywall in is what you are going and covering. So your appliances and just your belongings. And obviously you're going to want to have your basic liability. Usually the building falls under its own policy on there because you're not going to be responsible, obviously, for the roof.
And that would go into your condo fees.
That would be in your condo association fees. So that's going to be in there. And then obviously your roof, they'll have all that. You're not having to worry about that, but they'll always ask you what that is just because of the fact they want to know, if it was a rolled flat,
what type
they
of
want to
roof
have
it is.
that in. And they're going to say, okay, we've got 16 people in this condo. Or 8 or whatever, because then you're wanting to kind of see, are you on the first floor? Are you on the 4th floor? What are you on for floors as well? Because say you're in an end unit, also in a condo, then obviously you're not in between 2 people where they could potentially leave their, convection oven on and accidentally burn down or leave their tub running. And just, there's different factors that can be as to where the placement of your condo is that can affect your premium.
Oh, I never even thought of that. So, okay, I get it. So if I was on a corner unit, obviously the other 2 units might not protect me from the wind coming the outside but I'm not, like you said, if they start a fire, I might not be close to it.
Say you're on the 4th floor, top, or a penthouse type thing for a condo kind of situation, but you end up having it where, you're no longer having it where somebody could leave a tub on. Yeah. Or a shower or pipes leaking and it's going to leak down into your condo. You're not going to have that aspect, or you just might have the chance of the fire from the person next door, but there's a lot of different risks that are actually removed from that as well that can affect your premiums.
I'm becoming more dangerous, Jacob. So.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We all are. Yeah, we all are. Yeah. I know just enough information to really screw something up at this point in time if I tried to ever do this by myself. So it's fun.
I'll make sure to rein you in.
Yeah. That's why we have you here. So, all right, Heidi. So this is a portion of the show where we don't tell you about anything, right? So because we're here to have a little fun too. And I mean, I know we're learning a lot. I'm learning a lot today. So this is Stoli's part. We got Stoli's 5 rapid fire questions for you. And these have nothing to do with insurance. Totally random questions.
I like this.
All right, here we go.
You have a favorite number?
7.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
What does the SCUBA stand for?
Scuba Steve.
Scuba Steve.
Do you have a favorite Harry Potter character?
Well, I feel like Harry's always the main one, so I do like Voldemort.
Oh, Little
know,
dark
that's-
side of you coming out there.
Who knew?
I know,
I look
right?
so innocent.
You do look so innocent. A mom of 3, and she rolls with Voldemort. All right.
That's how you have to keep your children in line.
Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
And your hometown.
Brookings, South Dakota.
You're from Brookings, South Dakota.
I was born in Brookings. I did not live there. My mother drove through there, and that's where I decided I was going to join the world.
Okay. All right. So, little known fact, I lived in Brookings when I was 2.
Are you serious?
I am.
Oh, my goodness.
And I don't remember how long because I was 2. But my younger sister was born in Brookings, South Dakota when we lived there. So
very nice.
Yeah. So, and I'm from
Yeah.
Minneapolis. If anybody knew, I'm from Minneapolis originally.
I lived
So
in Minneapolis.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
God,
Plymouth. I was actually
Oh my
on
gosh.
Medicine Lake Road and everything. My
You're-
mother actually, she used to teach in Richfield.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm like, yeah,
I got a buddy who lives off, you take Medicine Lake, or my sister lived in Plymouth off Rockford Road.
I know exactly where that is.
We're getting way off topic
let's
here.
bring
but
it back.
Yeah,
The listeners are probably logging off. now.
Stoley's here to rein us back in, but we can have a whole nother show off this.
we
This
can.
is fantastic.
Minnesota Vikings. I'm used to having it where I'm used to failures.
There we
and-
no,
Just
Skull
kidding.
Vikings.
I've got
so.
Vikings in my house. So